Hello Bobcats, Mrs. White, 5th grade math. We are still in chapter 3. We're moving into lesson 2. Yesterday we talked about relating fact families, multiplication and division, and today in lesson 2 we're looking at division models. It is a 5th grade standard, something you have to know. I'm hoping after the end of the lesson today you'll be able to explore division using models. Why, Miss White? What's the main idea? What's the purpose? Why do I have to learn this? Well, illustrating, art, drawing, helps explain sometimes the math. Yes, it's a standard, we have to know it, but it's nice to be able to understand why it works, why the answer is reasonable. And today I'm hoping that using models or drawing will help you understand why the answer works, why it is correct. Now, before we get into the problems of lesson 3-2, I want you to think about what do you already know about regrouping. Okay, and when we think about regrouping, it means that we're borrowing or we're renaming, we're taking. So an example would be if you have 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you can regroup or you can break that up and borrow. You would have to change it into 10 ones. And so even though they both have a value of 10, they look very different. When we regroup, we make something look different. We don't change the value. Sometimes we take from the value or we rename it, but regrouping allows us to borrow or use. So from my experience, I know that we can regroup to help us when we're subtracting, when we're putting things into groups. So we'll be using renaming, borrowing, or regrouping in today's lesson to help us. Okay, and as we're looking at making models with division today, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to draw your model. You're going to take your total and you're going to draw it. After you make that model, you can begin to divide it into equal groups. If we need to regroup, if we need to rename, we can do that to solve. And after we solve, we're going to think, is it reasonable? Does it make sense? Does our drawing, does our model match what they're asking of us? So 1, draw your model. Then put it into groups. If we need to regroup to put it into equal groups and solve. Finally, check and see, does your answer make sense? All right, our first one is build it. In our class, 3 students share 48 markers evenly. How many markers will each student have? Well, step 1 is we have to make our model. And if we model 48, you would have 4 groups of 10, so 10, 20, 30, 40, and then of course the 8 ones. So step 1, model 48. After we model, we need to put it into groups. The problem tells us that we have students in our class. We actually have 3 equal groups, 3 kids who need those 48 markers. So we're going to make those 3 groups. So step 1, we modeled, we drew our 48. Step 2, let's put 48 into 3 equal groups. Well, I can see that I can put 10 in each group. 10 is one group, 20, and 30. Now I need to take what's left and put it into those 3 equal groups. This is when we regroup. This is when we're going to change this 10 so that we have some ones. So you can see here we have 6, 12, 18, because we have 18 ones that we still need to sort out into those 3 groups. So again, 48, we divide it into 3 groups. Well, each group is going to have 10, 20, 30, and we still have the 18. There's 18 ones after we regroup. If we divide the 18 into the 3 groups, each of them gets 6. So we have, each group has 1 10, and you can see, I'm going to use black this time, that each group has 1 10. Each of the 3 groups will also have 6 ones. So 48 divided by 3 is 16. The 110 plus the 6 ones. So each student will have 16 markers. Now, is it reasonable, right? We drew our 48, we made the model, we put it into 3 equal groups, 3 groups of 16. We had to regroup. And now I'm going to check and see if it's reasonable. In order for me to check and see if it's reasonable, I can do 16 plus 16 plus 16. If those 3 students each get 16 markers, then I do actually have 48 total markers getting passed out. I know my answer is reasonable. It makes sense. All right, now I'm going to try it. It tells me to find 56 divided by 5. Well, I know step 1 is to model. So I draw my model of 56. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then 6 ones. Okay, well, step 2, divide. I need to divide 56 into 5 equal groups. Well, each group will get 10. And that takes care of those. I still have 6 ones to put into those 5 groups. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups. Each of them will get at least 1. And then, of course, you can see way over here that there's 1 left over. So, how many ones are left over? Well, there's 1 left over. 1 cannot be split up into those 5 equal groups, because we're not dealing with decimals or fractions quite yet. Then it asks how much is in each group. If I take 56 and put 56 into 5 equal groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, how much is in each of those groups? Well, they're going to get 110, right? There's 110 in each of these groups. And then there's 1 in each group. Each of these 5 groups gets 1 of those blocks. Okay, well, I concluded the answer is 56 divided by 5 is 11, with a remainder of 1. Or there's 11 equally split into the 5 groups. It's reasonable because I know that 11 times 5, let's check our work, we want to see if it's reasonable. 11 times 5 is 55. And I have the 1 left over. So 55 plus 1 is 56. So 11 with a remainder of 1 is reasonable. It makes sense. I can move on. All right. Use math tools. Model 32 divided by 3 using base 10 blocks. Will there be any left over, and explain? Well, step 1, model. Well, I need to model 32. So 10, 20, 30, and then 1, 2. Step 2, divide that 32 into 3 groups. Because it's saying 3 groups here, I need to divide it into 3 equal groups. So I'm going to make my 3 circles. 1, 2, and 3. Well, each of those 3 groups will get 10 because I have 3 of them. So you get 10, 20, 30. Or 10 in each group, so it makes sense. I still have these 2 to deal with. Well, I have 3 groups, and I don't have 3 ones. So if I go back to the question, it says, will there be any left over? Explain. Okay? Well, each group will have 10. And I determined the answer is there will be 2 left over. I know there's 2 left over because I don't have 3 ones. So the answer would be 10, remainder 2, or 2 left over. There's 10 in each group with 2 left over. I can check my work. I had 3 groups of 10, or 3 times 10, which is 30. And then if I added the 2 left over, that would give me the 32. I know I have the right answer. Okay, moving into the practice it. Divide, use base 10 blocks, draw the equal groups, state if there are any left over. Well, step 1, I'm going to draw or model 44. Well, 10, 20, 30, 40, and then I have 4 ones. That's 44. I need to put 44 into 4 equal groups. Well, let me go ahead and draw my 4 groups. 1, 2, 3, 4. How much goes in each group? Well, luckily, you can see that I have 4 tens, or 4 columns that equal 10. So I can go ahead and put 10 in each of these groups. 10, 20, 30, 40. I also am lucky because I have 4 ones and I have 4 groups. So each group will get one of those 1, 2, 3, 4, and that takes care of you. Okay, and the question says, how many are in each group? Well, there's 10, 11 in each group. So I can go ahead and write 11 as my answer to the first question. There's 11 in each group. Are there any left over? No. We actually had plenty to split into 4 equal groups. So I theorize the answer is 44 divided by 4 is 11. I know this is reasonable, or I know I have the right answer because I can use that fact family. 11 times 4 is 44. So there must be 11 in all 4 groups. Okay, divide, use base 10 blocks, draw the equal groups, state if there are any left over. This time they want me to take 39 and divide it into 3 equal groups. Well, step 1 tells me to go ahead and draw. So I'm going to draw my 3 groups of 10. So 10, 20, 30. And then there's 9 ones. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have a model of 39. I now need to put 39 into 3 equal groups. So I'm going to draw my 3 groups. 1, 2, 3. Well, luckily I have 3 tens, so you get 10, 20, and 30. I now have to break the 9 into 3 equal groups. Well, I know 9 divided by 3 is 3. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then finally 1, 2, 3. Step 1, model, done. Step 2, I divided. I don't have to regroup. I can now go ahead and look at the questions they're asking. How many are in each group? Well, each group has 13. It has 1 10 and 3 ones. So there's 13 in each group. Are there any left over? No, I was able to divide 39 into 3 groups. So now let's look. So what do I surmise the answer to be? Well, 39 divided by 3 is 13. Okay, and I'm going to use a fact family to prove my answer. 13 times 3 groups will give me 39. So I know my answer is reasonable. Okay, I'm still in practice it. Moving on to number 6. Use base 10 blocks to divide 64 divided by 6. How many are left over? Well, I'm going to start with modeling 64. Okay, so I need 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and then there's 4 ones. 64, and I need to put 64 into 6 equal groups. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my group. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's go ahead and divide 64 into 6 groups. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have enough to put 10 in each group. Well, because I have 6 groups and only 4 ones, that's going to be my remainder. I can't pass out 6 of them if I only have 4. And we're not dealing with decimals and fractions quite yet. So the question says, how many are left over? Well, I know there's 4 left over. Okay, so if we look at the problem, I established the answer to be 64 divided by 6 is 10. Each group had 10 with a remainder of 4, or 4 left over. Okay, let's see if I'm correct. Let's see if it's reasonable using that fact family. Well, 10 times 6 does equal 60, and if I add what's left over, then I get my 64. So I know that 10 with 4 left over is the correct answer, or it's reasonable. Okay, now we're in apply it. Solve, use base 10 blocks. Kendrick has 42 craft sticks. And she's making 3 identical crafts. So she needs to break 42 into 3 different groups. How many sticks will he use for each craft? So Kendrick's a boy, and he needs to make 3 crafts. Well, I have 42. So step 1, let's model 42 with our base 10 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4 with 2 ones. Okay, model. Step 2, go ahead and divide it into your groups. Well, it tells me I have 3 different projects or 3 groups that Kendrick wants to do. So he's going to have definitely 10 in each of his groups. So 10, 20, 30. Okay, well, I have some left over. If I look over here, he has 10 plus the 2. Well, that's 12. So Kendrick needs to break 12 up into 3 groups. Okay, well, it might be easier if I regroup or change that 10 into 10 dots or 10 ones so that I can easily see how many are going to go in each group. So I take away that 10 and now I'm going to make my 10 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, or 12 total. So how many will fit in each of those 3 groups? Well, I can do this if it's easy for you to see it this way. Just mark it off as you go. So 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 1. I better make it a circle so it doesn't look like 10. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Each of the 3 groups will get another one because I have enough for each of them to have one more. 1, 2, 3. Each one of those groups, his craft projects, will get another one. And then if I look, I actually have 3 left over, which is perfect because I have 3 groups. So each group will get one more. How many sticks will he use for each craft? Well, the first craft, you can see, he's going to use 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. The second craft, he is also going to use, oops, I noticed that I put these 2 in the wrong one, I'm sorry. So let's add them right here. The second craft, you can see, he also is going to have 14. And finally 14. So if we go back and we look and it says 42 divided into by 3 or 3 crafts, we think it's 14. So I theorize the answer is 14 sticks for each craft. Is it reasonable? Let's use that fact family to check our answer. 14 times 3 does equal 42. I have the right answer. Okay, I'm still going to apply it. I'm going to use those base 10 blocks to help me. Write the division sentence that is shown by the model. Well, they have switched it up a little bit. They have given us the model. Let's figure out how many there are total. Well, this one has 10, 20, I'm sorry, let me use a black marker so you can see. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. So there's 60 of the base 10, or 6 base 10. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ones. Okay, so altogether they took 66. 66 was their total. And they put 66 into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups. So 66 divided by 6 groups. And then we need to figure out how much was in each of those 6 groups. Well, I can see right here that they had 11. 11 in each of the groups. So a division sentence, I understand the answer to be 66 divided by 6 is 11. It's reasonable because the fact family 11 times 6 will equal 66. I got the right answer. All right, it's that time, Bobcats. What did you learn today in lesson 3-2? Well, in summary, I'm hoping that you learned that using models can help you see why a division answer is correct. Being able to draw those models helps you see how much will end up in each of the groups. It shows you why it's reasonable. It helps explain or you understand why it works. So please make sure you use those base 10 blocks as you dive into your independent work. And thank you for your attention.